The hell is that?
What up, peeps, and welcome to Peep Street, the Café.
All right, so welcome to Peep Street. We are going to stream this here debate and have a slight conversation in the process. So yeah, hopefully you all are watching the debate. This is the last and final debate. As an undecided voter, it is going to help me understand exactly what's going on over here. All right, so let's go ahead and go there now.
And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go.
A rapid test.
We went back.
Getting better.
Microphones will remain.
All right, let's get to the rules. Sorry about that, people. Let's go. Clap it up.
And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what major topics to say at the beginning of each. So with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you.
I think that's a question they don't want to bring up.
New phase. More than 40,000 Americans
the
are in the hospital
coronavirus
tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem.
And we're the only country that's still messed up.
Of many countries on what we've
no,
been
you
able
have
to
not,
do.
sir.
With the, if you take a look at what we've done
Denise,
in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead.
I don't know
Hear
why
nothing else I say tonight.
at the same time.
Hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States of America.
Whoa,
We're in a
sir.
situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day
They can
now,
hear all
1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. Wow. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives.
I would love to
And we're in
see
a
Trump's face
circumstance
right
where
now,
the
though, being that he
president
can't
thus
talk
far
since he's
still
muted.
has no plan.
Yeah, I really like
Wait,
that.
they're muting
comprehensive plan.
whenever it's not their turn?
What I would do is make sure we have
I would
everyone
assume.
encouraged to wear a mask
I didn't hear what
all
she
the time.
said
I
about
would
it.
make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up
At least he's not
businesses so they
stuttering
can be
like he
safe
normally is.
and give them the wherewithal, the financial
Or
resources to be able to
hiccuping.
do
That's
that.
annoying.
We're in a situation now
Hi.
where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
tell
Oh
us
my
which
God, what kind of
companies?
answer is that, bro? I
Johnson
need
& Johnson
some.
is doing very well.
I need some
Moderna is doing
specifics,
very
bro.
well. Pfizer is
Help a
doing
brother
very
out.
well, and we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics.
For what?
And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter,
And I already messed up my Dubai
He has
trip.
no
I said
clear
that before.
plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now.
What did I miss?
But it was a far less lethal disease.
Lies.
Not much.
Deceit.
Look, his own person who
I may
ran
have
that
to step
for
out
him,
again because he's not
who,
done.
as you know, was his chief of staff.
Thank you. You want everybody in the world to know?
It was
care.
catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense
I had
Act
something, but
to
with
make
everything
sure
that's
we
going
go
on,
out
I
and get
haven't gotten
whatever
it
is
yet.
needed out there to
What'd you
protect
have?
people. And again, I go back to
caramel
this.
frap.
He had nothing. He did
Coffee.
virtually nothing. And
Yeah.
then he gets out of the
Trying to
hospital.
do it all nighter?
And he talks about
That don't
worry.
affect me.
It's all going to be over
Ah,
soon.
shit.
Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
Say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have
Christian,
no
I don't
choice.
think
We
their
can't
mics
lock
are muted,
ourselves up
actually.
in a basement like Joe
Yeah,
does. He has
I wonder if they got, like,
he
a talk
has the
before.
ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White
What's
House
he
and go
talking
away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten,
Well, you shouldn't do that. You're the damn president. You signed up for it,
bro. A
bruh.
lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, you know, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And, you know,
No,
I
sir,
caught it.
you could have
I
canceled
learned a
it.
lot.
Trust me, they would
I
have
learned a lot.
understood.
Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9 of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school. And
Wow.
we can't close up
That
our
is
nation.
so wrong
or
that he
you're not
said
going
that.
to have a nation.
And it's
And
not
of course, the CDC has
99%.
said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You
Can I
have
respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're
Yeah.
dying with it because he's
That's
never
the worst
said,
thing to
he
say.
said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I
Very quickly.
take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either.
Oh my
China's
God.
fault.
We don't
They
care who
kept it
fault
from
it is. We're
going
worried
into the
about
rest
how
of
you
China
actually
for the most
responded
part,
to it,
but they
sir.
didn't keep it from coming out to the world,
tell 'em.
including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he
Look at
thinks
his
we
face.
are
Look at
in
Trump's
control.
face.
We're about to lose 200,000 more
It's so
people.
annoying.
President Trump.
This is demeanor.
Perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say should have
did.
called
You
Pelosi,
certainly
and I
did.
I talked about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
Ma'am, mute him.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President?
No.
Please, because he's annoying me.
Let's talk about your
Thank
different
you.
strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and
That's
the rest of the
Amtrak.
Democrats and Republicans
Golf
about
course.
what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the neighborhood, but there are, look, you need standards. The
Answer
standard
the question,
is if you have a
Biden.
reproduction
Answer the
rate in
question.
a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. More social
What was the
distancing.
question? I'm
Do
sorry.
not open bars and do
About,
not open gymnasiums. Do not open until
if
you get
he
this
has
under
to
control.
shut down,
under
will he
more
shut
control.
down?
But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with
Exactly,
smaller
though. I
classes.
mean, that's true.
More teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President
Well,
Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive.
Oh, my God.
By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young
Yeah, but
people,
he doesn't
I guess
understand
it's
that
their
not
immune
each
system.
Let me follow up with you,
person,
President Trump. You've demanded schools open
Gets
in
that
person and
sort
insist
of
they can do it
treatment.
safely. But just
and not just the
yesterday,
treatment,
Boston
reacts
became
the
latest
same
city
way.
to move its public school system
Well,
entirely
actually,
online
I don't
after a
even-
coronavirus
I don't
spike.
even
What is your
believe any
message
of
to
them had it
parents who
personally.
worry
I
that
need
sending their children to
evidence.
school will endanger not only their kids,
I
but
want to
just
also
see
feel
their
that-
families?
medical
We wanna open the
documentation.
schools. The
for him to
transmittal
just
rate
take it
to
so
the
lightly.
teachers
Well,
is,
my son had it and he
very small.
recovered. Yes,
I
but
wanna
my son
open
can
the
get it,
schools. We have
and
to
his
open our
body may
country.
not
We're
react
gonna
the
have a
same
country.
way.
You can't do this.
Right.
We can't keep this country closed. This
I
is
mean,
a
but that's
massive
fundamentally him
country with a
misunderstanding and
massive economy.
misapprehending what he's
People are
supposed to be doing
losing
as the
their
president.
jobs. They're
No one
committing
cares
suicide.
about his personal
There's depression,
experience and his son's
alcohol,
personal
drugs
experience.
at a
I'm
level
glad
that
his son is
nobody's ever
safe,
seen
if in
before.
fact that's true,
There's
even though I don't
abuse,
believe any of them
tremendous
have it.
abuse.
Putting that
We
aside.
have to open our country.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it often.
You're the
cure
president of
cannot
everyone.
Wait, listen
Like,
to it.
worse than the
Like, get it
problem
together.
itself.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
not
just
true.
say that
We ought to be able to walk and
due
chew
to
gum at the
this,
same time.
us like closing
We ought
the
to be able to
borders,
safely open, but would they need
Not that it's not true,
resources to
but
open?
that
You need to be
alcoholism
able to,
rates
for
went up
example,
and
if
all
you're going to
that.
open a business, have social distancing within the business.
I mean,
you
probably
need to have, if you have a
ABC is
restaurant,
making
you
a
need to
killing.
have plexiglass
No, that's
dividers so
definitely
people
true.
cannot infect one
But why
another.
not?
You
Why
need to
would
be
you,
in a
like,
position
blame it
where you
on
can
that-
take
on closing the
testing
borders? Like,
rapidly and
that
know
was smart
whether
to
a
do.
person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace.
I think maybe
you need
what
to be
he
able to
really
provide
meant was that he had to
all the
shut down
resources that are needed to do
the
this.
economy
And that is not
and
inconsistent
companies were
with
shutting
saying
down.
that
Just
what-
inarticulate.
we're going
It's
to make
okay.
sure that we can open safely. And by the way,
But at least
all
he's
you
not acting
teachers out
crazy. I
there,
will give him
not
a
that many
compliment
of
on
you are
that.
going to die, so
Not
don't
phased
worry
out.
about it.
That was
So don't worry
intercepted.
about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me
Denise,
follow
we
up
on
with you quickly.
we on
Well, I will
Zoom
say
live.
this. If you go and
I
look
know.
at what's happened to New York,
She's
it's a
multitasking. There's a
ghost
big
town.
game
We just
going on.
did an
It's a ghost
interception,
town.
so.
And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are
Okay,
businesses
you-
that
you
are
go-
dying, Joe.
you-
You can't do
but
that to
people are dying. Like, you're
You
gonna
just
sit
can't. Take a look at New York
people
and what's happened to
in
my
an open cubicle
wonderful
and
city
let them
for-
inhale
for so
God
many
knows
And
what
years.
get
back
I loved it. It was
tomorrow.
vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's
Like-
leaving New York.
It's
Take a look
without
at what New York has done
coronavirus
in
and
terms
sitting
of
in a
turning
cube
the
next to
curve
someone
down
else.
in terms of the
You
number of
catch
people
the
dying.
flu like
And I
this.
don't
You
look at
catch
this
the
in terms of
colds
what
like
he
this.
does.
Like,
Blue
sir.
Just
states
think
and
about
red
when
states
kids go
are
to
all the
school
United States.
and come home and
look
everybody
at
in
the
the house
states that
is
are
sick.
having such a
Just
spike
regular cold. Like,
in
get it together, bro.
coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you
about-
say spike,
Well,
take a look
so
at what's
have we.
happening
We've lost
in Pennsylvania,
60,000.
where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed
Who's
to
their
do
friend?
anything. It's been like
I
a
don't know.
prison. Now,
I
it was
think
just
the
ruled
Michigan governor.
unconstitutional. Take a
But
look at
people are
North
trying to kill her.
Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been
His
closed,
friend.
and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we
I
move
kinda
on
like
to our
her
next
as,
section, President Trump. This week you called Dr.
Moderator?
Anthony Fauci, the nation's best
Yeah,
known
me too.
infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster.
She ain't
You
no
described
joke.
him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not
Grant,
listening to them,
Grant-
who are you listening to?
I
We
think
should
it's
fight
Grant
them.
I'm listening to
Eifel.
all of them, including Anthony. I
She
get
was
along
her
very well
mentor.
with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said, this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us, Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're
the
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I
Joe,
haven't.
you have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton
What
with a
is
tiny
he
fraction of the money
talking
that she
about,
was able-
Hillary
Gentlemen,
Clinton?
Don't
move
tell me
on.
about Wall
Average
Street.
contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next
Christ.
section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's stalking them a lot. I don't think he said a
y'all
word.
ain't playing
I don't
games.
know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it.
Who ain't playing
and
games?
I don't know what he has recently
You?
said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is
But
he'd
what?
probably be more outspoken
no.
with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome
What
of our
was the
election.
question? The foreign
His own national
policies?
security advisor
No,
told
that
him
Russia
that what
and
is
some
happening with
other
his
place
buddy
are trying
well, I won't-
to-
I should-
Into our
I
election.
will.
Yeah.
His buddy
Okay.
Rudy Giuliani.
Just like the last
he's
time-
being
the last
used as a
election.
Russian pawn.
What happened?
Nothing happens, and then
For
you
what?
find out that
Oh, it kind of
everything is
stopped for me.
the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question. Why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes.
Well, let me respond to the first part as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And
we got evidence of that. That's all I care
about. Your family got $3.5 million, and you know, someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said,
I don't know why
the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose, because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well.
What is he talking about? I'm confused now.
During you and Barack Obama, they took over a big
leave
part of
Barack out of it,
Ukraine. You handed it to them. But you
better
were
leave
getting a lot
Barack
of
out
money
of
from
it.
Russia. They
Barack
were
ain't got
paying you
nothing
a
to
lot
do
of
with it.
money, and they probably still are. But now, with what
He
came
will
out
never.
today,
He
it's
will
even
always
worse.
have him in his
All
mouth.
of
I
these
just want to
emails,
show me
the
your
horrible
taxes so I can
emails
know
of the kind
where
of
you're getting
money
this
that you
money
were
from. That's
raking
all I
in, you
care
and your
about.
family. And Joe, you were vice
What was it,
president when some of
$750?
this was
That's it.
happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an
$750. I
explanation
wish
to
I
the
could pay
American
it.
people.
The hell?
Why is it? Somebody
Me
just had a
too.
news conference a little while ago who was
Discrimination.
essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Maybe you can.
Vice President Biden, you may respond. 30
straight
seconds.
here.
And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money.
And it's
I have not
trashing
taken a
China
single
now.
penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new golf course.
Biden's been a little bit spicy on this one, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. It seems like this is the last one. I'm about to come through. You hear me?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants.
called my accountants.
Under audit. I'm
I'm
going to
under
release
audit.
them as soon as we
He
can.
been
I
saying
wanna
this
do it,
since
and it will show how
2016.
successful, how
Like,
great this
if you look
company
at
is, but
the
much more
regulations for
importantly than that,
IRS,
people will
nothing
say
says that you can't release these
$750.
tax returns. Like,
I
get
asked
out of
them
here, bro.
a week ago,
And even
I
if
said,
you're under audit,
"What did
okay,
I
that's
pay?"
fine. Give
They
us
said,
the
"Sir,
years
you
that's not in
prepaid
audit.
tens of millions of dollars.
Where
I
you at,
prepaid
bro?
my tax. Over
That's
the
what I wanna
last
know.
number of years.
'Cause you only paid
Tens of
$750
millions
the
of
last
dollars
time.
I prepaid. Because at some point they think
And
it's
y'all
an
taking all
estimate.
my
They think I
hard-earned
may
money
have to pay tax.
that I need
so
for alcohol
I already
and
prepaid it.
everything
Nobody
else.
told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you
that.
released
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid
Okay, wait.
millions and millions of dollars
Even
in
if that's a
taxes.
filing fee, that is
Number one.
so
Number
rude.
two, I don't make money from
there are
China.
so many people
You
who
do.
don't make
I don't make money from Ukraine. You do.
what
I
you
don't
make.
money from
And
Russia.
you're paying the buttload.
You made $3.5 million, Joe.
Of taxes.
And your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this, but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them to the American people?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because I have a lot of people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president.
Everybody is against
I get
him.
treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly.
What I missed, what he
We had a
said.
deal all done.
He gets
As
treated
soon
very
as we
badly by the
complete
IRS.
the deal, I want to release it.
Deep
But
down in
I
IRS,
have
he gets
paid
treated very
millions
badly.
and millions of
Worse
dollars,
than the Boston
and
Tea
it's worse
Party.
than paying. I paid in advance. It's
Not the
called
Boston
prepaying
Tea
your
Party.
taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both
Tea
about
Party.
questions
Oh, whatever he
regarding
said.
your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance
Some
to
point
talk
about
about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
She's very
Why
pretty.
just- She's been saying this for
She
4
really
years.
is.
Who cares
Yeah.
about
Show
how pretty
us.
she is? She ain't no joke. She said,
Stop
look,
playing around.
That jawline.
You've been
Very
saying
quickly,
for 4
bro.
years
I
you're
know,
gonna release
right?
your
It's like
taxes.
very-
Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what
okay,
he
y'all
paid,
did
he
y'all
said,
did
"I
see
only
that he
pay
was
that
trying to
little
talk and
because
he
I'm
couldn't
smart.
be heard.
I know
They
how to
didn't use
game the
his mic.
system.
Did you see that?
Come on.
Very good.
Come on, folks.
Very
So
quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years.
What are you talking about, the
It
impeachment?
started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign.
Oh, my God.
No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say
You
this.
still on that, bro?
And 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over
He's
the
still on
place
that?
spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong.
They did the same thing for
48
Clinton.
million. I guarantee
Millions
if I
and
spent
millions of
$1
dollars to
million
find out
on
that
you,
he
Joe,
cheated.
I could find
Look,
plenty
we already
wrong.
knew that.
Because
All
the
right.
No one
kind
care.
of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your
Like,
family has
bruh,
taken.
speed it up.
I mean, your brother made money in Iraq.
Let me-
Millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work
He
your
just
son
said he
has done
spends his time in the
China and
basement.
for a
Sir.
Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
For his son?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal.
Oh, my God. I'm so sick of hearing about
regard to Ukraine.
The other guy, not
We
Bo.
had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out
at that
U.S.
word,
policy.
impeccably.
Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has
I mean, they
made
got
money
a golf
from China.
course.
Never
President
did
Trump,
deal with
let me
China.
let me
By the
ask
way,
my question to you.
Bruh.
Very
Let her
quick.
ask the question.
Didn't have a job for a long time.
Who cares?
Was sadly no longer
Who cares?
in the military service. I won't get into
Who
that.
cares?
And he didn't have a job.
Who cares?
As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him
so annoyed. I'm so over here
$183,000
today.
a month. Listen
Your
to
sons
this.
don't have anything other than the
183,
fact that
and
they
gave him a
ride
$3
on your
million
coattail.
upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no.
what are they
I'm
doing?
going to let the vice president
That's
respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly, Mr.
basis for
Vice
that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you.
That's right,
Since you
stand up
took
for your
office,
son.
you've never divested from your business. You've personally
Never.
promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed,
So,
and they're
on
all
live?
over the place.
Really?
I
On
mean,
the
I was
show,
a
man.
businessman doing business. The bank account
Do you
you're
guys
referring
know
to,
if
which
she
is-
posted
everybody
the
knows about it,
questions
it's
ahead of
listed.
time or
The
she
bank
did like
account
the other
was in-
moderator?
Oh, I don't know. I was working.
2013.
I got a real
That's what
job.
it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was
No, we all do.
I was thinking about
We
doing
got
a deal
time to
in
be
China like
looking this up.
millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open,
Only
and I closed
Denise,
it.
because she gets
Excuse me.
unmuted.
And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business.
Sorry, I have the guy
then
that's
decided
coming in
to
and
run
out.
for
No.
president after that. That
We're
was
saying
before.
that-
So I closed it before I even ran for
Yeah,
president.
but it's fine.
Let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up
Okay,
money every
President Trump,
place he
thank you. We
goes.
do
Not
need to
true.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well.
What's the score?
When I met with Xi, when I was
10-7
still
for
vice
those of
president,
you
he
who
said
are
we're
also
setting up
looking
air
at the game.
identification zones
Eagles up.
in the South China Sea. You
My
can't fly
president's
through
talking.
them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1
I have a
bombers
bet going
through
on,
it.
so
We're
I
not
cannot
going to pay
lose.
attention. They have to play
Where are you
by
going
the
for?
rules. And what's he do?
New York.
He embraces guys like
$60
the
to
Giants.
struggles like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25%. 25%
Hey.
of the world's economy.
Y'all know my
We
mama's
need
birthday
to
is
be having the
tomorrow.
rest
Shout
of our
out to my
friends
mama.
with us saying,
Happy
Happy
China,
birthday.
these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run
Have you
it.
seen
And
his
that's what
face?
we did in upholding
There you
steel
go.
tariffs and a range of other things when we
Him.
were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
Yes.
respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're
Son
going to move
walked
on
out
to
with
North
$1.5
Korea.
billion from China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two. Number one. Number
Okay,
two. There's
I don't
a
really like
strong
him, but I will
email
say I got to give him a
talking about
compliment.
Your family wanting to
His
make
temperament
$10 million
is,
a year for
less
introductions.
babyish.
President
as
Trump,
normal.
on China policy, though, what
No, but
specifically
wait.
are you
So
going to
whoever
do?
did work with
What
him, shout out
specifically
to
are
them.
you going to do to
Agreed.
make
Good job.
China pay? You've said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers'
Because
money.
China- It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come from
Biden,
China.
you're about to get
taxpayers.
muted.
It's called China. China paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great
Yeah,
farmers,
right.
because they were
I
targeted.
need evidence of
You
that.
never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Yeah, but
And
the
now we
whole
have a
time that he
steel
was
Okay,
building
Vice
these
President Biden, your
buildings, all of his
response,
steel
My
came
response is,
from
look,
out of the
this
United
isn't about-
States.
There's a
Well, get
reason
out of
why
here.
he's bringing up all this
Tell the truth.
malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family.
Exactly.
It's about your family.
I'm hurting.
And your family's hurting badly. If you're making if you're a middle-class family, you're getting
me
hurt
my money.
badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen
You're not
table
a
this
middle
morning
class.
deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
No.
North Korea.
Excuse
me. Mute
I
him.
want to
1 second,
turn to
please.
10 seconds,
Mute him.
Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he
Shut
lost
him
the family
down.
around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not a
North
typical
Korea.
Okay, we don't care about
politician.
this,
That's why I got
bruh.
elected.
Let's
Get off the subject of China. Let's talk
We wanna
about
talk
sitting
about
around
American
the table.
families.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've you've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test, and yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here, because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a
All right, I'm
nuclear
back
war.
for
And
good.
he
He
does have plenty
finished.
of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a
Good job,
relationship.
Denise.
We have a very good relationship,
We don't
and
support
there's no
McDonald's.
war. And you know,
I do, 'cause my
about
son
2
works
months
there.
ago, he broke into.
Oh,
our
yeah,
secretary.
yeah,
He
yeah,
said,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
there's going to be trouble." I said, "No, they're not, because he's not going to do that." And I was right.
Shout out
Look,
to
instead
Mickey
of being
D's
in a
for
war
giving my
where
son his
millions of
first
people,
job.
Seoul, you know, is 25 miles
Yes,
away.
Lord.
Millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul.
Well,
Millions
just
of
to make
people
it
would
easy,
be
but-
dead right now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice President Biden, to you.
Mickey D's
North
over
Korea
everywhere.
conducted 4 nuclear tests
Davion.
under the Obama administration.
Well, let me
Why
mute
do you
myself.
think you would
These
be
people
able
be
to
like, "He's so
rein
ghetto."
in this
I am.
persistent threat right
Because
now?
You
I
are.
made it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because
Davion.
here's I made it clear as a
me to say
spokesperson
the
of the
time.
administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why
Thank
are
you for muting him.
moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem.
What
and
happened
we're
with
going to
Korea?
continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug.
Biden.
And he talks about how we're better off. And they have
I'm back,
much more
people.
capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing
Nuclear
down
weapons,
his
yeah.
nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right,
You don't need
let's
to
move on
respond.
to
Remember
American
there.
families.
They tried
Very
to
quickly,
meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I
know
gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's
I-
okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good
Where's the
relationship.
mute button?
You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, 'cause
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler
Hello.
before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put
Exactly.
stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move
me,
on
Mute
to
him.
talk about
He left
American
me a
families.
mess.
Mute him.
President Trump. Okay,
Mute him.
we
He
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
Mute him.
And
We
in
need to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to
2
all
or
of our
3
other
months.
Let me show y'all how to
There
mute
was a very
somebody, just like
dangerous
this.
period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy.
That's how you mute
One of the
people.
issues that's most important
John.
to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new
Why?
Supreme
I
Court
thought that
Justice,
was a
Amy Coney
fly,
Barrett,
and it's your
health care
mouse.
is at the center of her confirmation
Oh.
fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance
I was like,
through
oh my
the
God,
Affordable
another
Care Act.
fly.
It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health
Watch you say
insurance
we're gonna
taken
create
away
a plan.
in 2 minutes uninterrupted?
First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible.
Watch this.
Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst
I terminated.
part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it, We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with
So let me just say this.
beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous
Even
pressure.
before he
on them, and
became
we might even
president,
have the
he
House
was
by
talking
that
about
time.
Obamacare
And I think
and
we're
ways
going to
on
win
it.
the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're
4
going to win the
years.
House.
Right.
But come up with a better health care,
me
always
a plan.
protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact,
Don't
do
try
not
to cut out
have the
my point out of
wherewithal
the
to
history,
if you
folks.
qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing.
So,
There's no
Denise,
way he can protect pre-existing.
You already voted, right?
None.
I did.
Zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time.
Anything from this
There is no,
debate?
he's never come up with a plan. I guess
I
we're going
don't-
to get the
you don't have to tell us who
pre-existing
you vote
condition
for. I
plan
don't
the
really
same
care.
time we get the infrastructure plan that we've
But
waited since
anything
17, 18,
change
19,
about
20. The fact, I still have
You
a few
wish you
more
would
minutes. I
have
know you're getting
waited
anxious.
so that you could
The,
vote after this?
The fact is that he's already
Yes,
cost
that
the American people
Obamacare
because of his terrible
thing,
handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover. 10
so far is
million
the only
people have
thing that I
lost
would have
their
wished
private
to
insurance.
hear
And
back
he wants to
then.
take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare and over 110
Which
million
side?
people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that
I don't know,
President Trump said. He's
might not
accusing
be
you of
on the
wanting
show anymore,
socialized
people,
medicine.
but
What do you say to people who have
just-
concerns that your health care
let's
plan,
just
which
milk
includes a
this
government
system for
insurance
right
option,
now.
takes the country
Look,
one step
my
closer
family has
to a
already
health care
disowned
system
me.
run entirely by the government? What's your
Saying
reaction?
it's ridiculous. It's like saying that,
Are you
Ask
serious?
Davian.
the
Ask
idea
Davian.
that the fact that there's a public option
Okay.
that people can choose, that makes it
Let
a
me remove
socialist
you. I'm
plan.
gonna put you in a
The
waiting
difference
room.
between the president, I think healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care.
You can request to
And
get
I am
back
very
in.
proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people.
He wants
at an
to talk
affordable
so
rate.
bad.
That's what I do.
President
Excuse
Trump,
me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even
Denise.
more. Bernie Sanders
Yes.
wants it. The Democrats
Maybe I'll
want
just
it.
show me
You're
this
going
group-
to have
this family
socialized
group
medicine,
chat.
just like you went with fracking.
I hope that is just
We're
like
not going to have fracking.
you
We're
trolling,
gonna stop
'cause
fracking.
seriously,
We're
I'm not
gonna
gonna deal
stop
with
fracking.
you
Then he
after
goes to
this.
Pennsylvania after he gets a
Why?
nomination where he
Because
got
you
very
have a
lucky to get
son
it.
who's
And he
fucking
goes to
half black,
Pennsylvania,
and
he
we
says,
just went
"Oh,
through this
we're
whole
gonna have
Black
fracking."
Lives Matter movement, and
And
you
you
were
never asked that
on
question. And by the way,
many
so far, I
episodes
respect
talking
very much
about
the
the
way
fact that
Emily
you
does. I
have
have to say.
By the way,
But
black
somebody should ask the
sons.
question.
You can
He
ask-
I don't, you
goes
did
to
not.
here.
You didn't do it.
There will be
We have
Trump is
we
talking
we
right
do have
now.
a
Let
number-
me
we
listen.
have a
No,
number
fuck
of
that.
topics we're
Fuck
gonna get
that.
to. We
Uh-uh.
have-
My question.
We're going
I'm
to get
telling
to
you right
we're gonna
now.
get to
It's the
another
same
topic.
thing with
I mean, we can
socialized
pause
medicine.
this.
Vice President, your
Have a
response.
conversation on who you
I
voted for real quick.
will-
to have affordable
I'll tell you
health care,
right now.
period.
This doesn't have to make the
Period,
cut.
Period. And the Biden
live.
proposal will, in fact,
Oh.
provide for that.
I'm telling you right now, you
lower
are outta
premiums.
here.
What we're going to do is going to cost
And
some
if you
money.
talking about
It's gonna
Davion
cost
coming
over
down to Virginia
$750
Beach,
billion
please.
over 10 years to do it. And they're going to
What, you're not gonna allow me to see my son? What is wrong with you?
Not at all.
Lower your
Because you don't
premiums,
stand for what he
deal with
stands for. You don't support him as a black
Oh my God,
and have
shut
your
up.
Drug prices drop
didn't
significantly.
vote Trump.
He keeps
She didn't
talking
vote for-
about
you
it.
didn't
He
vote
hasn't
for Trump.
done a thing for anybody on health care.
You did the right thing.
Listen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I wanna talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's
I
talking about
prefer you to
socialized
vote for
medicine.
Kanye.
And when he and healthcare, when he talks about a
Or
public
write me
option,
in
he's
as
talking
the
about
candidate.
destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security, and this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make
Thank
it work.
you.
Okay,
It
Shut him
was
down.
let's let Vice President
impossible
Biden
to work.
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's a
Biden,
very
your response.
confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the
Biden said,
idea
"Look,
that we're in a
bitch."
situation that they're going to destroy Medicare.
Did she mute
this
him?
is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said,
don't know.
if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by
That's 3 years.
2023 with no
and I'm
way
still
to
paying?
make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So no, I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of.
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
Move
on.
on.
I'm
this is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that
Let
when
me,
they
Mr.
announced-
President,
Thank
I
you.
have to move on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going
will
to have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm elected.
I'm
If he's
speaking.
elected, the stock market will
President,
crash.
I'm
Okay,
speaking.
let's
Biggest
move on to the
analysts are
next
saying
question.
I don't think she's the
Reclaiming
one
my time.
voting them.
The idea that the stock market is booming
Yeah, I
is
don't
his
think she
only
can beat
measure
them.
of what's happening.
No, I think it's
Where
someone
I come from in
else.
Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on, gentlemen.
401ks are through the roof.
We're going to move on.
Are through the roof.
All
And
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of
gonna-
time before he
okay,
even knew
we're
it.
gonna move on to
And
the
he
Mute
left.
him.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million
Yeah,
people
let's
are
get to
out
the
of
real
work.
meat of the
And as
issue,
of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women
Yes.
and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President,
You know, the Republican leader
on,
in the,
yes.
in the United
Thank
States
you.
Senate said he can't pass it.
Thank you.
He will not be able to pass it.
Thank you.
He does not have Republican votes. Why
Thank
isn't he
you.
talking to his Republican friends?
let me follow up with you, Vice President.
Thank you.
We made a
Biden,
deal, the
because let
Republicans
me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This
That's
is like
true.
it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act, it was $800 billion. I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their
Oh, he
budgets and
pissed.
states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
The bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions
Okay,
of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money
Okay.
from our people's
I'm gonna
pockets.
pause real quick. I'm gonna pause because this is the same conversation. Dave, where's Davion? This is the same conversation that I have with my chiropractor, who was a heavy Republican. And he used the same line. And then thereafter, what he said was that these were cities that were run by people of color. And so I take exception to that because you're saying liberal, but liberal is really a code word for individuals of color who are running these cities. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter whether they're liberal or Republican. The fact of the matter is that you are the president of these United States of America. That means you pick up the pieces no matter where these individuals reside, no matter what color the state, quote unquote, may be. And this is like pissing me off. Like I'm really getting hot under my skin because this is bullshit. Like you're the president. Like figure out how you can make these quote unquote liberal cities to go where you need to be. Like that's your job. Is that your job?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? When your
Who you talking
comes
to?
when your CEO comes to your organization and say we gotta lay people off because of X, Y, and Z, you're not gonna go and look to the janitor. You're not gonna go and look to the receptionist. You need to look at the people who are leading. And so you are supposed to be a leader. So lead the freaking country where you want it to be. And stop using these political hangups of Republican and liberal and all of that. Scratch all that. I don't care about any of that. Like make these cities, make these states whole. Fix them. Like you're not doing anything. Like I got on. Sorry, people. Like nah, I'm like You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do that. You're the president, bro. Last time I checked, people voted you in. Back to the
people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
By the way,
I want to.
if I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, united. United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the
Biden,
minimum wage.
where
bill.
were
Mr.
you
Vice
on that
President,
first
we are talking
debate?
a lot about struggling small
They have
businesses and business owners these days. Do you
No,
think
he's
this
like
is the right time to
fueled
ask
up.
He's
them
on
to raise
fire
the minimum
today.
wage
He's
and
like-
support a $15
He's like
minimum
not
wage?
I
stuttering.
do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
He's about,
We are
he's
gonna
about
move
to,
on to
he
the
was about to say
break,
these
but I wanna
motherfuckers.
He said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently-
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses.
You
How
said-
are you helping your small businesses when
Mute
you're
him.
forcing wages?
Yes,
What's
like
going to
today.
happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Not true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal minimum
it.
wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an hour.
really
Is that
like,
still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different.
He caught
Some
himself.
places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response.
Okay, so on that very quickly, I don't know, he raised Alabama, and I don't know if you all know this, but Birmingham, which is predominantly black, Birmingham said, look, we have so many people working at minimum wage, even if they work the 40 hours, never leave, work, never take off, they cannot take care of their home and their house. So we are going to raise the minimum wage. The state of Alabama took Birmingham to court to say, you cannot raise this minimum wage. And I think the minimum wage was like $8 or $9 for the state. You can't raise it to $12, $13, $14. And so people who are living in Birmingham, their landlords don't give a crap about how much money you make. They don't give a crap that you only can get a job that's minimum wage. Like at the end of the day, people need to wake up. Like this is about your house and home. Like he is not putting a dime in your pocket. Not a dime. Not a dime, because you don't make enough to be recognized in his eyes. And that's what people need to realize. Like, stop focusing on your party. Like he's been in there for, I'm not advocating one or the other, but what I would tell you is what he just said is a crock of BS. Do some research, people.
Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour.
Exactly.
These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now,
Yes,
gentlemen.
please.
And we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels.
That's in our
and
book,
they're brought
by the
here,
way.
and they used to
American
use them
Dirt.
to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400
Sir,
miles
answer
of
the
brand new
question.
wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you
But
reunite
let me
these
just tell
kids
you.
with
Yeah, that's
their
what we want to know.
families,
That's the
Mr.
question.
They
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper. And it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they
Never
were
got to
built.
answer the question.
In 2014, that was him.
Told you.
Do you have
They
a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents.
That's
They come
still
over through
very hard.
cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
did it. We changed.
did not
They built the
separate
cages.
They,
Who built the cages, Joe?
let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
That's
Joe?
not what they're
We're
talking about, sir.
What happened?
Okay, I do want to say this just so people are clear. When Obama was in office, there were I'm not going to call them cages, but there were
Immigration
these
centers.
immigration centers where they had them in chain link fence. The difference,
They
and
were
see, people are focusing on where they are, but the difference is that they were in these detention centers with the people
Yep.
they came with who were their parents.
Right.
And that's the difference.
and they weren't sleeping on the floor with tinfoil on top of them.
And not
Like-
and not only that, let's just get real. The Department of Justice went to a federal judge and said, we're not responsible for giving them toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap. These are fundamental things that people need for hygienic purposes. And it was his administration who caused his Department of the Justice to go and make these frivolous legal arguments that we're not responsible to provide the bare minimum necessities. So, yeah.
He still didn't answer the question, and there's
Still
still
didn't.
families
This-
out there.
This issue really burns my buttons because it's BS what he's talking about.
Happened. Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down.
seconds,
We
and then
brought
I need to ask
reporters,
a question.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of
have
them
gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
That's not
Let me
the
ask about your
question,
immigration
sir.
policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at
will
the
give
border
her that.
before
That's
changing
true.
course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States.
Exactly.
And the fact is,
I
I've
have to
made it
give
very
him
clear.
that shit.
Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress
I'm
a
tired of
pathway to
Biden. You
citizenship
could have
for
done
over
this. You could have done
11
that.
million undocumented people. And all of those
throw my boy under the
so-called
bus.
dreamers,
I just
those
got, like,
DACA
shivers
kids, they're going to be
hearing that.
immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy, and they want to do that, is they've gone to a country they've never seen before.
Yep.
I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, oh, no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
And do you know a lot of them
President
actually
had
serve
8
in
years
the
to do what he
armed
said he was
forces?
going to do. And I've
The
changed it without
Netflix
having a
show.
specific. We got rid of
What's that
catch and
Netflix
release.
show
We got rid
that
of a
we
lot of
watched?
horrible
Immigration
things that they
Nation.
put
Yeah,
in and that
exactly.
they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country.
First.
That's never happened before in America.
First.
That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
Sean, you asked me
Your
would have
response.
changed my my response had, I wish I would have waited. I wish now I would have, because this is what I was looking for on that first debate.
And I will give you that. I fought you on that last time.
Yeah.
And now I understand what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but fundamentally, as an individual who's making a determination about who run this country, you also have an obligation to do your independent research.
And I did. And based on the research that I did, I voted based on who I felt.
Well, you should have asked me, because I would have been able to tell you the truth. The bottom line is this, okay?
It's not about what you think.
Asylum.
Thank
listen,
you.
Okay, but listen to this. This is important, okay? International law, okay? There are a lot of folks out here who are, I'm a conservative, this, that, and the third. BS. Throw that out the window. Because if you look at the history of this country, we have been part of international conventions for a reason. And one of them is asylum. And there are certain criteria that individuals must meet to say, I am fleeing my country for X, Y reasons, and I can come to these United States of America and make my case. But he said, no, you can't do that. You need to do that in another country. So you think about that. You think about people who were walking and taking caravans from El Salvador through Mexico to come up through the border in order to make their case from asylum. And then they've been told that, nah, bruh, nah, sus, you can't do that here. Like, we've been doing this for, if you look at the history books, for God knows how many years, hundreds of years. And then you decide that you're going to turn these people away? And think about how these people look. That's the thing. Like, there are only certain types of individuals who can traverse through land to get to a border to come to these United States of America. It ain't the people from Spain, because they can't freaking walk the water, because they ain't Jesus last time I checked. Like, think about what these policies are doing. These policies, while people are thinking, oh, this is keeping the border safe, that's BS. Baloney. Okay? It's because of how you look and how those people look that they're preventing you from doing things that you are entitled to do under international laws. Don't get me started.
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll
Ooh.
move
It just shows
Ooh.
that he has no
Ooh.
understanding of immigration of
What?
the law.
Did he make it all
Catch
the
and
way?
release is a
He
disaster.
fell.
A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would
She's
take
going
their
mute.
name. We
Oh,
have
I'm
to release
sorry.
them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them, we would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years, we're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump, let's give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know the law,
section.
Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk about our next section, which is race in America.
Yes,
and I want to
let's talk about
the
that.
way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child, when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in
Sir,
1994
answer the
when he
question.
did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they could never live that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has
stop
done
trying
more
to
for the
go
black
for Biden
community
and answer the question.
than Donald Trump.
Exactly.
And if you look,
Like,
with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim
He
Scott,
still didn't
a
answer the
great
question.
senator from South Carolina. He came in
Definitely
with
not
this
talking to the
incredible idea
families,
for
I can tell you that.
opportunity zones.
Nope.
It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it.
I hope she
Tremendous
mentions it, though.
investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice President?
My response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said
Or go
it.
to
Not enough
13th
people.
and watch
He
it.
talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000.
And
The
Obama
very
was
law
the
he's talking
first
about
sitting
is a law that,
president
in fact,
to ever go
initiated by
into
Barack Obama.
a prison.
And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people
Wow.
under our administration.
With the intent
And
of
one of these things we
understandable,
should be doing, there
some of them
should
are
be
criminals,
no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago?
Okay, sorry. I don't want to go on a rant. I'm not going to.
Like,
He cleared his throat though. You know when he cleared his throat, that means he's going.
play.
No, this is serious for me. Davion, he's in the background. I have conversations with him consistently about recognizing that he's Black and there are certain things that he cannot do that his non-Black friends can do. And it is frustrating as hell. Because in this neighborhood, I own just like the rest of these people own. I pay my taxes just like the rest of these people pay their taxes. And I shouldn't have to have a conversation with my 16-year-old that you can't wear a bandana or you can't wear this because people are going to presume that you are inarticulate, a gangster, doing something inappropriate. Like, I shouldn't have to have these conversations with him at all. We don't struggle. We don't. But I have to have these conversations with him because the people who are out there who are supposed to be creating justice have an opinion about who he is just because of the way he looks. And he didn't say anything to me as a Black single parent why he understands the struggle that I have as a parent and that I have to put on my son. My son shouldn't have to fucking deal with that, period, at all. He should be able to have a freaking happy teenage life like every other fucking kid. But he can't, because I have to instill on him that you can't do the same thing that other people do. And that is frustrating as hell. And if you, for people out there who's like, oh, you just being dramatic. If you don't understand the shoes that we walk in every day, you don't have a mother freaking thing to say to me. Period. Point blank, the end. And it is so frustrating. Like, I get angry all the time about that. And it's sad because even if you are doing something for criminal justice, these are things that your people should prepare you on to be able to speak about, even if it's not true, even if you don't believe it. Make me think you believe it. And he didn't do that.
Yep, I agree. I have
At
to give
all.
you that one. He didn't answer, period. Like,
No.
he literally did not say
and
nothing.
you know about the conversations that I have to have with Davion. Even Davion get frustrated that we have to have these conversations. But I wouldn't be doing my job as a parent if I didn't prepare him for what it's like outside these doors. And it's sad. There's no other adjective that I can use. Like,
Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you
I
do it?
am
You were
not-
vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond,
If
and then we're going to have
this stuff
follow-up
is true
questions.
about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody-
Take a look
President
at the
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of
Excuse me,
race. We're
take a
talking
look at
about the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump,
Somebody
we're talking
knew
about
her.
race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of
Thank
race.
you.
President Trump,
And I
you've
have to
just
respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national
She's
intelligence
losing,
folks
and she's like,
who said that what
Oh,
this
she
he's
better go
accusing
off.
me of is a Russian plant.
I couldn't do
They
this
have
at
said
all.
that this is
Me
has
neither.
all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
gotta be-
exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what
This
was
is
told.
where he's
Yeah, I
going.
know about the
laptop
laptop.
is Russia,
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue
Boy,
on the
oh,
issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes
wanna see what
exercising
he's
their
gonna say
First
about this.
Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as
Because it's
my
your people
relationships
killing
with
African
all
Americans.
people. I think I
Like,
have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
But what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know.
and by
I mean, I
the
don't know
videos?
what to say. I got
need to
criminal
mean that.
justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they
so
can
this
say
is what I
anything.
took as an
It's a very-
answer.
it's-
Well,
makes me
if you
sad
say this, then I'm
because
gonna say this.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Racist
Okay, Vice
person.
President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys.
Why did he say
last
about
time we were on
Abraham
stage here, he
Lincoln,
said,
though?
I told him to stand down
I think
and
he-
stand ready.
Is
I
he
think he's
recording him?
calling
This
Trump.
guy is a
Yeah.
dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up question.
He made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did
Oh.
that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm
I
saying-
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly, in jail.
All right, let me-
And you know
let me
what?
a- let me
they
ask
remember
Vice
it because
President
if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right
Mute
now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that you
Biden
treated
People.
them
about-
very, very badly. Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime
Okay.
bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drugs. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
And he was
38,000
the vice
38,000
president.
prisoners left from the.
You got
out-
nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running, to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens
Because-
of thousands of mostly black young
people.
men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk
And no
no
action.
action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and
that's-
then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe.
All right.
Sometimes you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running out of
already done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump,
How
you
would
say
you
that
rate her,
environmental
though, as a
regulations
moderator?
hurt jobs in the energy sector.
Out of a 10,
Vice
I would give
President
her an
Biden,
8.
you have said you see
Yeah, I
addressing
think she
climate
did
change
better
as
than
an
the
opportunity to
last
create new
two.
jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love
many
the
different
environment, but what I
programs. I
want is
love
the
the
cleanest,
environment.
crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon
best,
emissions,
lowest.
which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change and climate warming, global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up
Well, they're probably
the climate,
done by now,
to
but
clean
you
up,
kept
to
muting
limit
it.
the limit of emissions will put us
How
in
to
a
get my
position
anger
where
out.
we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor.
I wish they would have
people worried
had
about
two
jobs,
strong
to support my climate plan. Because what it does,
debates
it will
like this.
create millions of new,
Me too.
good-paying
Yeah,
jobs.
that first one was
We're going
a
to invest in, for example,
disaster.
500,000.
But if you
50,000
want
50,000
compensation, make sure
charging
you call that
stations
phone number
on our
that I
highways
posted on
so that we can
Instagram.
own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that.
Pain
We're
and
going to be in a
suffering.
position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And what right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
Today came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. Right. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President
Shut him
respond,
down.
and we're running
Thank
out
you.
of time, and
Thank
we have
you,
a lot
Boo-Boo.
more
You'll
questions
destroy
to get
our
to.
Thank you.
So let's hear from the Vice
Time's up.
President. I have a number more questions.
I don't know where he comes from.
What are you, the
I don't know
moderator?
where he comes up with these numbers.
Yeah.
Queens.
FYI, the score
$100
is 14 to
trillion.
10.
Give me a break.
Oh, I'm watching
New
it.
York.
This plan.
I know.
This
We
is
just
plans
stopped to
endorsed by
play.
every major environmental group.
But I don't know
and
where your
every
son getting
labor
his money
group.
from. Oh, well, he does
Labor,
have a job now.
Because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the
Kills
fumes
all
coming
the
up, if you're a
birds.
believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
who said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So
False.
It's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want. And what about fracking?
All right,
Now
let
we have to ask
me
him about
allow
fracking.
Vice President Biden to
I
respond.
never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is
Showed
he's
it last
flat lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer, we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025.
I wanna know
what
how
I will do with
far
fracking over
apart they are
time is make
actually
sure
on the
that we can
states.
capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse me,
we have.
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking
You said
and or
fracking.
oil
You
on
didn't say
federal
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, and then I want to move on
we
to our
got more
final
questions?
section.
How
President
long
Trump,
is this
people of
debate?
color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical
You
plants.
muted
in
it,
Texas,
remember?
there are
You did it like
families
3
who worry
times.
the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration
I had
has
to
rolled
speak.
back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a
still
lot
made
of
it.
money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers
that
that we
one.
produce for Hispanic,
Hello? Y'all
for
are-
Black,
y'all are
for Asian,
unmuted.
it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years.
This is
Than
important,
it was
people.
under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more.
Now you want to put it
Now,
nicely? What the hell?
Somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it. And I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
Ooh,
My
final
response is
question
that
coming
those
up.
people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. and all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turning the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe.
Yep.
What do you do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions, the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would he
question.
close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close
it
down the
falls-
oil
By the way, I would
industry?
transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's a big
transition.
statement.
It is a big statement.
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal, but
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time, And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give
All
it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy
Sir.
the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice
He
President
remi-
Biden, let me
I don't
give
know
you 10
why he
seconds to
reminded
respond,
me of
and
the
I have to
lady
get to the
from,
final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context. But
Street.
the point is, look,
Oh,
we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China
to
to
both
do
of
it?
you. No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All
That'll
right, this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to
Now,
Americans
we wanna hear
who
this.
did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time,
Sir, but
et cetera.
answer
But I
the
will tell you, go back.
question.
Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump.
All right.
I just gotta tell you, your son is a sore loser.
I already know because I've been asking for. Am I muted? Oh, I've been asking for cheese for the last couple of.
Talking about if I lose, I'm not paying y'all because of one play. One play.
I know, but if I ask for cheese one more time. All right.
Go up.
So let's close this out.
Mhm.
Denise, any final words?
Yes, I think that this debate was way better. I felt that Biden this time was more about trying to answer the questions than trying to prove him wrong. And would I have wanted some different answers? Yeah, but I think he still did a way better job than Trump did. I do have a question though. I did not watch the debate when he did it with Hillary. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched all of them.
Was it like this where he wouldn't answer questions?
Yeah, like he was walking behind her and following her around the stage and like trolling her the whole time. He never asked. I've never seen him at. This is why I gave him the compliment I gave him. If all the debates I've ever seen him in, I've never seen him answer. Okay, I'm just putting that in quotations or air quotes. I've never seen him answer questions in the manner that he answered them in this debate.
So that would still leave me to, I don't know, like to wonder what's going to be the results on November 4th. But I mean, November 3rd. But I appreciated this debate way better. I think that had they done this before, the way they did now, it would have probably a lot of people would have, made a better decision.
Wait, repeat that last part.
1 moment.
Because you were looking at the game.
Davian, touchdown, boy, touchdown.
Hello.
Your mom said, Davian, touchdown, boy, touchdown.
What he say? He mad?
On God, he's not paying you. But go ahead.
Sore loser, just like his dad. What they did today, had they done this on the first one, I feel like a lot of Americans would have had a better understanding of who to vote for.
Or at least understand who's on the ballot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reality is people are going to make up their mind.
Regardless.
Not based upon performance, not based upon, policies, procedures, not based upon that. But there are select individuals who make the decisions based upon these performances and they matter. So yeah, Christian.
I wish they would have had this moderator on the first one though. Sorry, Christian. I don't want to take your time.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say the same thing. It was much better than the first one.
Yeah. What about you, Sean? Christian is a man of short, he
this is the last debate.
I know who I'm voting for. So I don't really have much to say. It was Biden did a much better job than last time. Trump.
He started good, but then towards the end.
Who, Biden?
No, Trump. I'm saying that he started good because I think he was like in his head with I can't overtalk because they're going to mute me. But then he started realizing that he wasn't getting muted. So he went a little off of, he went back to that first debate and started over talking and stuff. But I feel Biden did way better.
So I substantively, I think Biden had more to offer. At least we had a better idea of what it is he plans to do, or even if he doesn't do it, if he's elected. Right. Politicians are politicians, and Trump says he's not a politician, he's a politician. So I feel like in comparison to all the times I've ever seen Trump speak, period, I felt like this is the most he's been attentive in his presentation of whatever he had to present. Now, does that mean that I agree with the things he was saying? Absolutely not. But I will have to give him compliments. I have to give him compliments that he actually took the time to try to state what it is that he wanted to state. So I would give him, if I had to score these individuals 1 to 10, I would give Trump a 6 in his performance. And that is taking into consideration his other performances. At least it made it seem like he was trying to comprehend and understand what it was. The one point where he had the opportunity to actually speak to Americans, particularly Black Americans and or people of color, he didn't do it. And so he's been, even if he keeps saying I'm the least racist and all of that, which I highly doubt, but whatever, putting that aside, that's my personal opinion. This was his opportunity that was a moment in time where he could elucidate to individuals why he was not a racist. Like, tell us why. Tell us why we shouldn't believe all these other things that you've said and done throughout your 4 years as a president, and not to mention the things that you did prior to becoming president that just screams to me racist, right? This is your opportunity to speak to me and as a person of color, and you didn't do that. So yeah.
And even the question where she said, that what is it that she said, where she said that you're using terms that people are questioning,
Yeah.
are you, even that, his response was more like, but
No.
I heard them say.
And this was a prime opportunity for him to say,
agree.
you know what? Maybe I did say things that was misconstrued, or maybe I did say things that I can understand why you feel that way. That's not who I am. That's not my character. That's not what I represent. I represent, as the president, I represent these United States of America. That means individuals who don't vote for me, people who don't care for me, people who might wish me ill will. At the end of the day, it's my job as president to represent you and to do everything that I can do as a president to ensure that you take a part of this great union that we have. And he didn't do that. This was the opportunity for him to do that, and he didn't do it. And the bottom line is he didn't do it because he can't do it. When people can't recognize their shortcomings, particularly when they're on a stage where they're always on, where they have to be on, and they can't recognize that. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. And I know he's trying to use that whole, you're a career politician aspect, but that's exactly what all these career politicians do. And you haven't shown me anything different other than the fact that you've shown to me what I believe to be your true colors, which is that if I don't look like you, I don't matter, right? If I don't talk like you, I don't matter. If I try to make you understand my perspective, my historical perspective, why I feel this way living in this country that's supposed to be the land of the free, you ignore it, or you create things in the process to try to stifle my feelings and stifle my history and stifle who I am and what we bring as a group of individuals to this country. And so he just didn't do that. So yeah, for Biden, I would say that he was more on point than he normally is. I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes I felt like he was just all over the place, didn't know where he was today. He probably thought today was Wednesday versus it was a Thursday. But today I felt like he showed up the Biden who I recognized when he was running with Obama. So I appreciate that for him. There were opportunities where he could have done more, I think, to speak to his policies, speak to what he's going to do for people who are not already in his pocket. People who are undecided. So this was his opportunity. This was the last time. So he could have went to those individuals who are seen as predominantly Trump supporters. This was his opportunity to pull these individuals in. And I felt like he didn't dig enough in that arena. Would it would have mattered? I don't know, because I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a heavy Trump supporter like some people are. But this was his purpose. Like he's looked in the camera. He said that if I become the president, I'm going to be the president no matter if you like me, no matter if you vote for me, no matter if you voted against me. Like, I am the president for you. So I think he should have taken a moment to just pivot to those individuals to try to pull some of those votes to him. So that's just my opinion. At the end of the day, I felt like Biden performed Trump in substance and delivery. And just the aspect of being presidential. I know that's a stupid word to use. Like, what does presidential mean? But, before, I'm just going to say this, people were complaining. I know y'all tired of me talking, but this is reality. People were pissed off that Obama decided to wear a beige suit, right? It was the end of the world. Do y'all remember that?
No.
Y'all don't remember that? Obama decided to wear a beige suit. All these pundits, all these conservatives were like, oh my God, you're degrading the office, this, that, and the third. This is like unprecedented. But no one is making these same statements about the statements and the actions of the president who is currently operating the White House. And just it's just a dichotomy. And it's just a reality of the fact that if you look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, or else people would not respect you, would not recognize you, and would not take you seriously. But yeah, so I just wanted to say that. So I appreciate you all coming in. Those of you who actually peeped in, whether it was for a minute or two, 30 seconds, 15 seconds at all. Appreciate the time that you took to tune in. Normally we will record it and then try to edit it later, but there was no point. We got real jobs just like everybody else. And we wanted to be like at the moment versus trying to edit stuff out. So, all right. Appreciate it. Peace out.
Bye.
Until next time, continue to drink, listen, and Denise.
Converse.
I mean, wait, let's do it again. Act like you like into it. Let's try it again. Until next time, continue to drink, listen, and
Converse, like Trump. Converse.
well, you gotta do your hands though.
Converse.
All right, bye.
Wait, I gotta take a picture. Can take us off of live from Facebook?
Oh yeah.